That is the end of Reza Hendricks. Reza going for 28 of 26 balls. He had 4 fours, strike rate a smidgen over 6 runs per over, and that leaves South Africa at a 76. They need another 6 runs and over, so for the last 10 overs. So they really are on top of this game. But that is just a little glimmer of hope that India needed.
Yes. Yeah, most definitely. But I think right now the man coming in, Temba Bavuma, he's a nudger and a nerdland. I think he'd be very calm to come and do the job for his country here, just getting the singles like he did in the first match. Which is something that we would very, very much like. It's set up for a guy like
in which we must look for change is the state of the stalemated conflict between your country and neighbouring Azerbaijan over the disputed territory of Nagorno-Karabakh. I've seen no evidence that your government has brought new ideas, new imagination to this conflict.
Thank you. Look, when we achieved our objectives domestically with the revolution, there was a question about what are our foreign policy priorities. Our foreign policy priorities have been quite constant. This is about sustaining the national security architecture within Armenia. Nagorno-Karabakh is a huge security challenge to our people. For us, this is a question for Karabakh. Now, Armenia is pursuing a development agenda of consolidation, and it doesn't leave out the people of Nagorno-Karabakh. That's a pan-Armenian agenda. We're a nation which is within a territory of the Republic of Armenia, but a nation of a global nature everywhere.
But you have to recognise international law, don't you?
Within that, Nagorno-Karabakh is a land with our compatriots. We haven't been
there's
claiming
no question
legally.
that Armenian people live on that territory, but that territory is not
people of Armenia, people of Azerbaijan, and people of Nagorno-Karabakh. He has been receiving a lot of
side by side with their child, not in front of their child. And that was, again, whether that's a shift in circumstance because of the times we're living in, where parents may be more proactive in their child's life.
A little more affluent,
Yeah.
they have more time to direct their energies towards their children.
Potentially, I mean, or others less time because they're too busy at the office.
Correct.
But the notion of a player having to push their child to sporting success is clearly debunked by this study, where it was clear that the parents of the successful players, I'm not suggesting it's a precondition to success, but certainly the players we interviewed all had parents who encouraged the players' love of the game and were supportive rather than pushy. So so if I'm speaking to the parents at the local clubs, I'm saying if you genuinely want your child to succeed, the research will tell you is that you take a back seat and you stand there to pick them up when they fall down. You don't drag them by the scruff of the neck and throw them forward. You just make sure that they're there for the right reasons. Because they love the game, they've got strong values, they're committed to their teammates.
Fantastic.
Certainly. Where do the ethnic clubs come into this? Because that's something that was common to a lot of the players in the study. Maybe it's a remnant of the time, but also it seems as if those clubs were able to create an environment that made players want to stick around and participate in the life of the club, not just come to a training session and go home and you fall
Graham Arnold, who lost his mother at a critical time in his life, was embraced by Sydney, Croatia, and he spoke about it at a function in Sydney recently and spoke of the great warmth and the great love that club gave him at a critical time, and he felt he owed that club more than it owed him, which was a wonderful way to talk about the support it provided.
Yeah, I think and that's probably kickstarts my own preamble to this research, is the role that the traditional clubs played transcended football. Their focus was on building a pillar within society, giving newly arrived migrants in this instance a safe place, a second home, an institution, a social lubricant, if you like, to allow them
a church.
It was the in many ways, it was the counterbalance to the church. It was an institution that allowed them to assimilate into what was a strange world, and that was the function these clubs served. And football just happened to be the pastime that was played, or the pastime that was pursued in that forum. So that's the strength of those clubs. Wasn't necessarily something unique to their football or something unique to the way they structured up their, footballing philosophy. There was no footballing philosophy, I'll tell you. We all play, there was jumpers on the ground, 5v5 and kids running
Oranges
around.
at half-time.
There was no underpinning football philosophy that my dad and my uncles invented. It was just what they created was an environment at a club that meant you were there all weekend.
But the next game, how did you cope, and what did you learn to beat them another time?
Yeah, that's right. And
Which was, again, problem solving.
Correct. So all that type of unstructured plays clearly supported and helped these players develop, but not in isolation. The best players then had a really good finishing school in the AIS.
Yeah.
So you had this really unique investment the Australian government had made that was ahead of its time, that allowed players our very best players at 15, 16, 17 to accelerate their development. Live
So it was
away
a
from
finishing school,
Well,
huh?
to some degree, it allowed them, it moved them away from home, so it thickened their skin.
Yeah,
so when
cut
they made
the umbilical cord, so
Correct.
a bit more stand up on your own.
So when they made that leap into Europe, they may have been a bit more prepared for it than they might otherwise be now. I mean, a lot of players now are leaving home for A-League opportunities, so we'll need to look more deeply into those sort of discussions. But there's no doubt that the pathway created through this really robust singular club environment that transcended football was fundamental to providing a really safe space and a really conducive space for falling in love with the sport.
And here I was hoping there was some sort of vital developmental nutrients in the chivapi or something.
Well, look, I mean, by the looks of some of the people on the terraces, I don't think chivapi have a therapeutic or any sort of medicinal effect that's positive.
If you've just joined us, John de Delica is in the studio talking about...
I love the way you pronounce my name, George, as well, to be fair. So
Is it not
you are the
de Delica?
doyen. No, it's perfect. You are the doyen of pronunciation, so congratulations to you.
My pleasure. When I first entered the realms of the media 100 years ago, it was something that was not very much in vogue. People didn't care how you pronounced your name. They were going to tell you always how to pronounce your name.
Well, you very much...
And
you
I
are the
remember
pioneer
from
of that,
day one
George.
I said, no, it's not going to work for me. So Bruce Gingell wore it, and it was great that a young guy called Laszlo Urge was allowed to call himself Les Murray, which is a whole nother story. We're talking about Culture Amplifies Talent, which is the research and the piece that the PFA is using to help, I suppose, create a framework to maybe create a new generation of golden stars who play for the Socceroos and the Matildas. You had, as I touched on earlier, a unique opportunity. You were there in the early days of Melbourne Heart. When you were putting that initial squad together, you must have had enormous challenges finding smart young kids who had a bit of football nous, who were strong enough in character that they wouldn't fall away at the first challenge. And you had to bring in some people who had the game sorted out, who had played overseas, but also could fit in Australia's, could come and fit and play a style of football that would be competitive and would help us mould a new type of team that we hadn't seen too much of. What was it like in those early days?
It was a lot of fun. I mean, I look back now and I can't believe the hours that we worked and what we had to put up with. And, yeah, it's quite frightening now to think of how much of my life I gave up to try and put a team on the park in the A-League. But, yeah, it's really interesting. I was really proud of the side that we developed. We unearthed some really good young players and, there's probably...
Many of them did very well
I mean,
and continue to.
I mean, guys like Ali Babal who burst onto the scene, I think Ali could have been anything but for the injuries that he's endured. He really could have gone on to be, the number 9 that we're sort of craving. But, of all the players, the one that always sticks out to me is Aziz Behich. And, I was talking to Clint Bolton at the launch last week and just reminiscing how Clint was in goals. And in front of him as a back four, we had a 21-year-old Michael Moroney, an 18-year-old Brendan Hamill, a 17-year-old Curtis Good, and a 19-year-old Aziz Behich as our back four. And then you had Ali Babal up front leading the line. So we had a really exciting group of young players.
And you had a worm.
Yeah. Don't remind me of that, George. Come on. But, it's interesting. But one of the players that I'm most proud of is a player who didn't really play much, and that's a guy called Clement Tasevski.
Oh, yes.
And,
who got injured.
Yeah, young Clement, we signed on a 2-year deal.
Terrific kid.
Early on, wonderful guy.
Yeah.
He was, just as he signed for us, he was umming and ahhing about what his academic career might look like, and we really encouraged him to stick at it.
Yep.
He ended up enrolling at La Trobe University, which is where we were based, and started a law degree.
Fantastic.
Finished that law degree, even though his career finished 2 or 3 years in. He ploughed on with his law degree, finished his law degree, admitted as a solicitor, and now works for FIFA.
Yeah, look, he's a terrific young man.
It's not
quality,
and
he's a quality young
person. And again,
person.
but that's what ultimately what we tried to do is create a club or a team that transcended footballing success. And if clubs are just as proud of Clement Tasevski as they are of Aziz Behich, I think that's really important. So if you bring that down to grassroots level, if everything you're doing is about trying to unearth the next Socceroo, it's a recipe for failure. You need to try and be unearthing not just the next Aziz Beach or the next Aaron Moy, who's another player that I'm very proud of, but the next Clement Tasevski, because not every player is going to be a Socceroo. Not every kid that enters your club, but that, you know what, that kid with his character, with his values, he's going to help Aziz Beach blossom. You know, he's going to do the club proud in other ways. So, that comes back to this culture amplifies talent. It's not just about the culture of the player that succeeded; it's about the culture that surrounds him or her.
And we saw a bit of that last night in the FFA Cup final with the announcement that a young man by the name of Ali Hassan Toure showed to all and sundry that he wants to play the game, he can play the game, and when it matters, he has the ability to solve certain riddles.
Can you pronounce the name again, George? That was just delicious. Can you do that again?
Yes, Ali Hassan Toure.
Oh, well.
Yeah, no.
Look positively orgasmic, George.
Yes, right, thank you.
Right from the SBS.
Yes, the Iranian leader of the House said the same thing.
Look, I think, to see him play with a smile on his face, clearly he's somebody who the game means everything to him. And, it's...
Because it's given him a sanctuary.
Well, it is, but...
It's given him a chance to soar.
Yeah.
It's given him a chance to grow.
Absolutely. And if you look at how exciting it is to see a young player emerge like that, it adds more headlines, or certainly adds as many headlines as a high-performing foreign player. So I think... when
I
we
actually
get
think sometimes even more.
Yeah, absolutely it does. I mean, no question. So what we need to do is be able to produce more players that coaches are prepared to take punts on. So we can say to coaches, look, you got to play young kids. The rules say you've got to. The game needs you to do it. But you know what? The coach has got a mortgage to pay as well. And
Johnny A said the same thing. Johnny Aloisi said
to keep.
Yeah, every coach is on a 4-week revolving contract. If you have 4 bad games, you could get fired. So they're not prepared.
Why are you talking about Pochettino like that?
So they're not going to take... Pochettino's a great example. Like,
he should be untouchable.
Nine games ago, he played in a European Champions League
final.
Now they
won't dump him. Seriously?
With a club that has a wage bill of a mid-table side.
Correct.
So now he's risking his job. So anyway, we digress.
We digress. But it's important to do that sometimes.
But back to this. So a coach has to make a decision each week about who he plays. And that's the best indicator of a player's talent. If you can make the team, then the coach has faith in you, has confidence in you. Maybe not just for today, but maybe down the track. If he's not prepared to do that, you haven't won his trust. He's placing his trust in other players. And what we're seeing now is the coaches are more willing to place their trust in older players ahead of younger players. That's not in and of itself a sin. But what we need to do, if we want to force coaches to play younger kids, is make sure the younger kids the coaches are actually getting their hands on are better equipped to make the game. And that goes, again, down to this whole notion of culture amplifies talent. Once these kids are in these clubs at young ages, give them everything they can to succeed. Not just the technical skills, but the passion for the game and the driving, burning ambition to succeed.
Part of the programming at FNR is we do a number of club shows, and one of the club shows that we do each and every Thursday is the Apia Club Show, a club that has a tremendous history of success and a tremendous history of bringing up a great talent, from the Yankoses to the Scheinflugs, you name them, the names just keep going. And what fascinates me is how many of those players were given, again, a tremendous opportunity to showcase their passion and their skill, and they were rewarded many times over. And we did an interview earlier in the season when Apia won its NPL 1 title this year at Bankwest Stadium. And the thing that made them most proud, other than winning the title, of course, was that they won it at a brand new sporting facility. And when you look at the CV, it'll say first championship won, Apia Leichhardt, NPL 1 v
Sydney United.
Sydney United. So isn't that fantastic that they're talking about it in that fashion?
Yeah, it's nice to have that integrated footballing story rather than having these silos of this is NPL, this is A-League, never the twain